Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Well, it is after the high holidays, and we are back to the daily grind, as they say. But speaking with you here at the microphone, it's never a grind. It's always a new day, a new opportunity. I know that you in the United States and in the Western Hemisphere are listening to me usually in the evening times, unless it's Sundays. That's when I broadcast in the morning. But for me, even though it's midnight U.S. Eastern Time, it's 7 a.m. here in Israel, in the Holy Land. And I am seeing, when I get up in the morning, the sun coming up. And for me, it's a bright new day. And I'm here at the microphone now, seeing the sun rising. It's risen already, but it's still not high in the sky. And it's a new day and a rebirth of another day. And that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to kind of forget the news, because most of the news anyway is all taken up about the U.S. elections. There's not that much happening here in Israel. We're still under a lockdown. But we're going to concentrate today on something that Israel News Talk Radio is able actually to deliver to you. And that is a movie that you will never see anywhere else in the media. You'll find it on YouTube, but we're carrying it on our website. It's a new movie. It just came out. And if you go to our website at israelnewstalkradio.com, you can see that movie for free. And you should watch it quickly, because we don't know, with all the censoring that's going on in the social media, how long this movie will be up. It's right there on our homepage as soon as you go to israelnewstalkradio.com. It's called The Rebirth of the Nation. And we will, when you watch this movie, witness the rebirth of the nation on the land where the Jewish nation, the Hebrew nation, was first born. And that is the biblical heartland, Judea and Samaria. And by watching this movie, you will be a witness of the unfolding miracle of Jewish redemption on the land most sacred to Jewish identity. This is an amazing movie. I'm telling you, you will not see this anywhere else. Go and watch it before, God forbid, it's taken down. We'll be right back.
Always challenging the status quo. Hello, I'm Rod Bryant on Beyond the Matrix here at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. I want to encourage you to listen each week, every Wednesday at the same time, for an amazing show that will challenge you, inform you, and inspire. News, views, and wisdom for the nations here on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Don't forget, Beyond the Matrix every week, Wednesday, here on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
The Rebirth of the Nation. This is a movie that you can find for free and possibly for a limited time. With all the censoring that's going on around the social media, YouTube, etc., you never know when a movie can be taken off because they say it is racist or it is against their guidelines for something. And this is a movie you will not see anywhere else in the media. It is very important to watch this before, God forbid, it's taken down. The Rebirth of the Nation, you can find it on our website at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. As soon as you click on the page, it's right there. Watch it. This movie is going to give you scenes of Judea and Samaria, the biblical heartland of Israel, what some people erroneously call the West Bank. You're going to see sights and pictures that you've probably never seen before anywhere. Drone views from the different regions in Judea and Samaria to see what a settlement, or I like to say resettlement, really looks like. I say resettlement because we are back here after 2,000 years, because we have rebuilt here after 2,000 years. These places that you hear about, Bet El, Ophrah, Ephrat, these are all places that you'll read about in the Bible. That's how old they are. That's how Jews used to live here. You won't see places like Ramallah, Jenin, El-Fachem in the Bible. They didn't exist then. These are occupier cities. You're going to hear beautiful music in this video, and you're going to be able to meet heroes, true today live heroes of Israel who live in these places. Now, I can attest to the sacrifices and the hardships people have done, not kind of unlike what Americans did in order to conquer the West. To get from the East Coast to the West Coast, it was very dangerous. And they didn't have the amenities and things like that. People who moved from Boston, where the universities were and the operas were and the culture was, going to the wild, wild West where anything could happen. That's kind of like what it was here, except here nobody cared when Jews were killed. In fact, they were supporting the murderers. But you're going to meet the heroes, people who came here. When I came to my home, I didn't have a telephone. We didn't have electricity, only by a generator. It was really settling the Wild West. And you're going to meet these people as they are interviewed, and you are going to see where they live, how they live, what they've done, what they've taken a barren hilltop and made it into something that is so amazing today. Really, really inspiring. And just traveling on the roads, by the way, I have to say, also when I first came to live in my home, because I live in the Jerusalem area, but in a resettlement, as they say, and that was just driving on the roads where the Arabs would try to pick you off like ducks in a shooting gallery. It was extremely dangerous. My children in their school buses, because we didn't even have schools in those days, were shot at. So you really took your life in your hands to come and live and settle the land of Israel. So why, after all this time, when we see the flourishing of these communities in Judea and Samaria, which is in our biblical homeland, still under contention? Why has Israel still not applied sovereignty over Judea and Samaria, which I said some call the West Bank, wrongly? Well, our next guest, Ezra Ridgely, who is the director of the Jewish Heritage Project and author of the book Judea and Samaria, the Land of God, runs the most detailed website in the world, which showcases the rise of Jewish life and culture in the land of Israel, in the cradle of Jewish civilization, Judea and Samaria. He is also the producer of two documentaries, The Spring of Judea and Samaria and The Awakening of Judea and Samaria. He's the author, and again, as I just said, he just came out with this new movie, which is called The ReBirth of the Nation. And you can check all of this out also on his website called thejewishheritageproject.com. Welcome to the show, Ezra Ridgely.
Shalom, Tamar. It's great to be back with you on the air again. And yeah, it's a very special time we're living in right now. The Judea and Samaria crisis now has been going on for 52 years. And now they're still up in the air. What's going to be happening to it? They're still trying to divide up the land. And I just believe that there's an inadvertent apathy toward the land among our people. Not everyone's good, wonderful people, but out of sight, out of mind. So this movie showcases the rise of Jewish life and culture. I'll probably repeat some of the things you said, but it showcases the rise of Jewish life and culture in Judea and Samaria and Jerusalem. And people will meet, they'll learn about how the settlement movement was started and they'll be able to witness the struggle and achievements that have reached today. And these are great achievements. This is the land where the Torah was played out. It's central to the redemption of the Jewish people and the coming kingdom. And why is it called ReBirth? Well, where was it first born? Our nation. Well, under Joshua, when he came into the land, after 7 years of conquering the land, Judea received their territory in the tribe of Judah, and the tribes of Benjamin, Ephraim, and part of Manasseh received the territory, which would be now Samaria. So in Judea and Samaria, they had settled the land, they had set up the Mishkan, the tabernacle, in Shiloh, and the kingdom was underway. But Joshua had to rebuke the remaining tribes on the west side of the Jordan, saying, why haven't you taken your land yet? And so it took them another 7 years of mapping out the land before the rest of the tribes received their land. But the kingdom was started in Judea and Samaria. Now Hashem says in the prophets that he goes, I will rebuild you again as at first, like it was in ancient days. The kingdom doesn't start in Tel Aviv or Haifa, as great and wonderful of places they are. It starts in the land that's most central to the Jewish identity, which is Judea and Samaria. And that's why we have communities like Ophrah, Shiloh, Beit El, Kiryat Arba, Tekoa, Ma'on, and many other communities that were there in the days of Joshua and that were settled and had faded away from Jewish history. And then suddenly, in modern days, post-67, these communities started to emerge like little sprouts, like little flowers, and they were spoken against, and they were called illegal settlements and so forth. But what they were was the unfolding miracle of the rebirth of our nation, on the very land. And these communities were reborn on the very spot of their ancient counterparts. And today, many of them are blossoming incredibly, and we're watching the birth of the nation. And why does it say birth? Well, God says in the prophets, he's the one who uses the term about a baby being born. If you look at the contours of the land of Israel today on a map, from the Jordan to the Mediterranean, you'll see that it looks like the contour of a woman. And it's got her face, if you look at the gold lines, the face looking toward the east. And in the belly of the woman, you will see what they call the West Bank, which is where Judea and Samaria is. And that's where all the trouble is, because it's there that the kingdom will be born. And the baby's sort of giving birth. Is giving birth as we speak, but it's not arrived yet. And so in the prophet Isaiah, God says, shall I bring to the time of birth and not cause delivery, says Hashem? Now just think about this right now. When Abraham, let's just go back to Abraham. When Abraham received a covenant by God, the covenant of the parts, and this covenant, God made a promise to Abraham that his descendants would inherit this land. At that very time, vultures started to descend on the animals that were divided and tried to devour it and stop the whole process of this covenant taking place. But he didn't succeed. And now here we are, 3,800 years later, and now we've got the land in fulfillment of the promise. But guess what? The vultures are coming, and they want that baby aborted. You hear in America the term abortion, you hear late-term abortion, and you hear partial birth abortion. These are like depraved ideas, but just think about it. This is what's happening to Israel. The baby's about to be born. All the nations of the world are descending on it. They want to split it up. They want to create a two-state solution. This would stop everything in its track. It would kill the baby. We have the EU working in Jewish areas, like in Area C, where they're helping the Arabs acquire our land. And so we're in a crisis situation, but God has given us a promise. He's promised us that, hey, will I bring the time to the time of birth and not cause delivery? Indeed, the baby will be born, and that all those who have ideas of taking the land away from the Jewish people and taking it away from us have to be put on notice they will never succeed, for this is the land. In fact, we talk about sovereignty over our land. It is our sovereign land. So, it's just amazing. Like in the Torah, God says, He says, after all, it's talking about all the difficulties in the book of Vayikra, Leviticus, that would come upon the Jewish people in their exile, and then He finally says at the end of all.
Okay, Ezra, hold that thought. We have to go to a break. We're going to be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Shalom, everybody. Making a difference often takes just one moment and one person at a time. I am Orly Benny Davis, your show host on Israel News Talk Radios from Jerusalem with love. You'll be hearing people talking about politics, religion, social issues, and making a better tomorrow. Join me, Orly Benny Davis, for God and Country. From Jerusalem with love.
Wednesdays on Israel News Talk Radio.
Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Did you know this psalm and many others were composed by a Jewish shepherd and musician who later became a king? Would you like to know some of the inner meanings of psalms to help you connect with God and strengthen your soul? An exciting and easy-to-read book is now available which will help you do just that. Software for the Soul, Psalms for Everyone, available on Kindle, Audible, and Amazon.com. Software for the Soul.
All right, we're back here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com, and we're speaking with Ezra Ridgely. He is the author of the book Judea and Samaria, The Land of God. He's also the director of a new movie that's just come out, which you can view on our website for a limited time for free. It's called The ReBirth of the Nation. It is a movie you will not see anywhere else. Hollywood doesn't do this stuff. BBC doesn't do this stuff. Certainly not. So you want to see this, and you want to see it before, God forbid, it could be taken down with all of the censoring that's going around the internet right now. And we're speaking with Ezra, and Ezra's talking to us about this movie and about the Jewish communities, which some people call settlements. I call them resettlements because these are all places that Jews lived in before. We are back here after 2,000 years reestablishing this after there's been occupation after occupation after occupation. But in the end, God kept his promise to the Jewish people, and we're back here. So Ezra, saying all of that, give us an idea. We're in the midst now of signing these Abraham Accords. We're supposed to be making peace with the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain. Other Arab and Islamic countries are jumping on board now as well. However, it was at a cost, and that cost was, as our politicians are telling us, that we were going to put sovereignty over Judea and Samaria. However, or I should say parts of Judea and Samaria. However, that has now been postponed because these countries are not, what our politicians are saying, they're not ready for that yet. Why is this area so contentious, and why is it so important that the Jewish people are here?
Well, it was on this very land that God made the promises to the Jewish people. That means this land is central to the covenant, the personal covenant that God made with Abraham, which is for the Jewish people. The Jewish people have prayed for the last 2,000 years that we return to this land and to Jerusalem. And God made a promise. He said, I'll remember my covenant with Jacob and my covenant with Isaac and my covenant with Abraham, and I will remember the land. Now, the covenant with Jacob and the covenant with Isaac was really God reiterating the covenant and the promise that he had made with Abraham. And God said, I will remember the land. In other words, there's a special connection that Jewish people have to this land. It's so sacred to the Jewish people. In fact, even God has an affection for this land. He says, I bring you into a land of hills and valleys, land that the eyes of Hashem, your God, always looks upon from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. In other words, God is always looking at this land. So this is the land that he gave, his land, and he gave it as for a possession for the Jewish people. We don't have anywhere else to go. We only have one nation. And really, the redemption of the world requires the Jewish people to possess this land. And what's going on today is sort of like a spiritual war going on. And, the agreement they're voting on, in the agreement, they actually have a very big concern that they want to create a two-state solution. I mean, the chief White House negotiator said that we're trying to the whole agreement, with the purpose of it, is to try to save a two-state solution. That means there is a genuine intent to do that. It's been verbalized by all the parties involved, and then we have the EU trying to do their bit and the Arabs doing their bit. But the thing is, this land is designated for the Jewish people. People don't even know, not only is this land given to us by God, but under present-day international law, this land belongs to us under Article 80 of the UN Charter. Have you ever heard anyone talk about it? It was established as the mandate for Palestine, embraced by the League of Nations, which was adopted by the UN in Article 80. And all this land belongs to the Jewish people. Everything that you see going on now is a violation not only of God's law, because he gave it to us, but of international law. And on top of that, our historical rights to the land, which is the basis for this recent international law, our historical rights is because the Jewish people have been the only independent race of people to live on this land as an independent people, as an independent nation, in the last 3,500 years. When we were in the land, there was just foreign occupying powers. And those now who want to take possession of the land with the help of basically the entire world don't even have a right to it. Most of them are recent migrants. Like Joan Peters in her book said, by 1939, during the British Mandate, over 200,000 Arabs migrated into the land, besides thousands and thousands that came afterwards, that today are at least 1.5 million or 2 million. This is incredible. Like, there's no justice involved whatsoever. But if we just back up, all that doesn't matter. It only matters what God says. He says, I have given you this land, and God promised to us. But we need the Jewish people to stand together and join to the land. The land is so beautiful, and the land waits for the Jewish people. In fact, God spoke to Ezekiel the prophet, and he told Ezekiel the prophet to prophesy to the land. That's incredible. You think prophets only speak to people? No, he spoke to the land. He says, prophesy to the mountains, I'm just paraphrasing here, but prophesy to the mountains, the hills, and the valleys, and tell them that you will no longer be bereaved of the Jewish people, but I will multiply men upon you, all the house of Israel, because the land of Israel was in mourning, because there's a natural connection between the Jewish people and the land of Israel, just like there's a connection between God and the land, who he looks at the land all the time, as it says, and together we're all home. When the Jewish people are in their land, this is our land. There's 21 Arab nations. There's no justice in the world if the land religiously belongs to us, legally, international legally belongs to us, historically belongs to us, and then those who want it also are trying to acquire it through the shedding of innocent blood, and that's immoral. We have the moral rights to it on every level. So there's literally no sense of justice for all of humanity if they think that we have to give something that literally belongs to us, that we never relinquished ownership for 2,000 years, just praying to return to it. And God heard all those prayers. In this movie, The Rebirth of a Nation, you'll see there's a point in the movie. You can see that it's demonstrating something, that it's making a point, that we are arriving. The Jewish people are going to acquire their land because we stand, because they have all their wars, and they have all their weapons, they have all their political intrigue, they have the UN, their unity, but we have the God of Israel on our side. And this is why the baby will be born, and the kingdom will be established, and the nations will be frustrated. And as it said, the nations that go against Israel, it's gonna cause suffering for them. And but the movie will show the beauty of the rise of Jewish culture and life. It will show it, and please share it with the world, with your Facebook, with your email, or wherever platform you can, so that everyone can see the wonders what the Jewish people are doing in the land. And God's been very faithful to us. He's so good to us on every level. And but
Ezra,
right now,
I want
we're
to
in a
ask.
crisis.
I want to ask you. You've gone to all of these different communities in Judea and Samaria, and you've interviewed the people. You've been there not just once, but twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5, and throughout the years, and you've seen how they've developed. I mean, even in my community, when I came here, I didn't have a telephone. We had to put our own telephone lines, and even the phone company didn't come out and do it. We had to do it, and then call the phone company and have them do it. And we didn't have electricity on generators. And then, today you would see our community, and it's bustling, and it has schools and stores and all these things that we didn't have before. So saying that you, who have been to so many different places and you've made these films, this is not your first one that you've made, and you've done dozens and dozens and dozens of interviews with people. What was the most surprising thing that you learned when you made this movie?
I think that when you think of the dedication of the Jewish people living there, when you think about from, let's say, the beginning of the Oslo Accords, when in earnest the war against the settlers began, and so many were being killed, and they didn't have the support of their nation, their media, their government leaders, and most of the Jewish people of the world. There were a dedicated core crop of Jews that understood what the will of God was. Like Rabbi Waldman says, we wanted to do what we expected our God wanted us to do, and that was to settle the land. And I think Raphael Segel also says it in the movie. They understood what the mission was, and it was to settle the land. And when you're so focused and you're so dedicated, and it literally part of your soul, that there is no option. And this is why we're here today, because people had emunah. They had faith and trust in God that this was the right thing to do, and God backed them up with blessings, with brakas. So if you take somebody like, and I'm not talking about only religious Jews, you take a person like Ron Nachman, who went with 4 guys, or they set up 4 tents on a hill, and they called it Ariel. And now today it's got 22,000 people in an advanced university.
Right.
Performing arts center, and they were condemned as illegal outposts. This is evil. This is this. But guess what? God was with them.
Amen.
Communities,
Ezra, thank you. This is beautiful. Hang on, folks. We're going to be right back.
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
This is Shai Bentako, and each week I'll be webcasting to you from Judea, origin of the word Jew, a people besieged and beleaguered in every generation. Nazi Germany's but a memory, but in its place the world invented the phantom Palestinians as this generation's internationally authorized Jew killers. Tune in for a different slant on life in Israel, Phantom Nation, every Monday.
Hi, I'm Rabbi David Aaron. The soul basics are the most profound, the most essential, and yet often the most neglected in our education. Join me for Soul Talk on Israel's News Talk Radio and discover the secrets to love, spiritual growth, and personal power.
How did a nice Jewish girl from Delaware end up living in Israel?
Shalom, I'm Natalie Sapinski. Join me on my show, Returning Home. Meet different people who have moved to Israel. Hear their personal stories, their highs, their lows, and everything in between. Each week, we talk to experts on immigration and the process of moving to Israel. Listen to Returning Home every Thursday, only on Israel News Talk Radio.
All right, we are back here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. And our guest is Ezra Ridgely. We're talking about Judea and Samaria, the heartland of Israel, and his new movie that's just come out. I urge you to come to the website, IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com, and watch the video there. We have it there for you at the top of the page. As soon as you come on, it's on our homepage. And we urge you to watch this before, God forbid, it could be taken down. With all the censoring that's going around today, you never know. And you're going to see, you're going to get an inside look of what is happening in Judea and Samaria with the pictures that you've never seen before. These are pictures from not just on the ground with interviews with people and seeing, walking and hearing just even the gravel and the rocks and the dirt crunching beneath your feet, but also views from drones, which we didn't have years ago. And you're seeing all of these pictures of these communities. You see exactly where they are. You know, a lot of times the Arab propaganda machine like to give the world the impression that the Jewish people stole the homes of the Arabs. And if you look and see, you'll see that there's emptiness. You think of the desert lands of Saudi Arabia, except here it's rocky instead of sandy. And it's just nothing there. And then you see the Jewish people's communities there that are here after, again, 2,000 years. The names of these settlements, of these resettlements, because we are back here after so long, are mentioned in the Bible. Bet El, Ephrat, all of these places. So Shiloh, or you could call it Shiloh in English, these are places that you read about in the Bible. Even Bethlehem, you think of it as a Muslim city under Arafat since the Palestinian Authority came in. Before that, as a Christian city, because it was we had Byzantine and Christian occupation here as well. But Bethlehem, when you read about it in the Bible, is a Jewish city. It's called Bethlehem. It means the house of bread, because that's where we used to have the wheat growing, right, Ezra?
Right on. And it's Jewish land. I mean, they're dwelling in it, but it's got a Jewish name. And that's how all the names, one of the reasons they were able to know where all the ancient locations were is because even if Arabs were living in any little town, they were living in towns that actually had Hebrew names that were with an Arab twist to it. So, like, they don't even have a history. They're not even, like, Arab names. Even Ramah, like Ramallah, comes from Ramah. That's it. That's where Samuel the prophet went. It's right near Beit El. Like, they all carry a bit of the original Hebrew name, and that's an amazing thing. There's a very beautiful spring right near there, just by Beit El. It's called the Mulberry Spring. You know that spring, Tamar?
And by the way, just to translate for our listeners, Bet El, Bet in Hebrew means house, and El is God. So it's the house of God. And Ramallah in Hebrew also is like Ram is like high up, right?
Yeah.
And Allah, I'm assuming that's what they named it. You know, that like is their God. So I don't know. Maybe we should go to Wikipedia and look, or maybe you know.
Well, it is. Well, that's what I've heard. In the movie, we learn about Beit El, Jacob, when he had the dream, calling it the house of God. In the movie, they believe now, in the ReBirth of the Nation, they've uncovered that rock. Now, I found it hard to believe at first when I heard about it. I said, well, how could they know that would be the rock where Jacob slept? But when I got there and Judy Simon there was explaining everything, and I saw it with my own eyes, this rock, I knew that this was not a regular rock, and that this was probably unequivocally the place where Jacob had his dream of the ladder to heaven.
Why do you say that? Why do you say that this was a special rock? What did you see?
There's a flat bedrock. The whole land area is flat bedrock, but protruding out of the bedrock, straight up about maybe 8 to 10 inches, is a stone which is about maybe 10 feet long and literally shaped like the state of Israel is today. Literally. Now, it said when Jacob had his dream, Rashi said that the nation of Israel had folded under Jacob, and when God made the promise to the land and on the land on which you lie, I will give it to you and your descendants forever. Now, this rock is shaped exactly as the state of Israel is today. And so when Rashi made that statement, he knew that Jacob was sleeping on a rock that was shaped like the state of Israel, like the natural homeland of the Jewish people. And when you see just how it's the whole formation, and not only that, it says that Jacob put rocks under his head, and they say they amalgamated into one rock. They did the scientific tests on this stone, and it actually is a molding together of multiple rocks into one big formation. So I believe that God allowed us to find this place, this holy place, is because it's a sign of the redemption. In the same way, we've uncovered unequivocally where the tabernacle was, the Mishkan in Shiloh, where the Ark of the Covenant rested for 369 years, and that's in the movie also. People will be able to see actually where the Ark of the Covenant rested there. And this is an amazing thing, is to bring the truth of the Tanakh to life.
The Tanakh is the Bible.
Yeah, the Bible. Everything that's written in the Bible is true. And it's real. And this is why all the ancient communities have the same name, the locations. So when we're talking about Ramah and Ramallah, it says about Deborah the prophetess sat under a palm tree between Beit El and Ramah. Well, between Beit El and Ramah is this spring halfway up the mountain where I was about a year and a half ago. And I went to this spring and halfway up the mountain, and I couldn't find it. I was looking for it everywhere, but I found a couple of people wandering. A couple of IDF guys were looking to have a bit of a break, and they were going to that spring. And they said, don't worry, you just follow us. And we climbed halfway up the mountain, and there it was coming out of the rock, this water coming out of the rock. And you know what? And it was this little flat plateau with green grass. And I thought, you know what? Deborah the prophetess was probably, this is where she probably sat in this shaded place with water, and the people would come to her to receive the word of Hashem or to receive judgment. You know, she was a prophetess and a judge. The first time anyone had both those.
Ezra, we only have a couple of minutes left, and I want to ask you, from all of the different communities that you've visited, there are larger ones, there are older ones, there are newer ones, there are smaller ones. What places inspired you the most?
Well, Har Bracha is incredibly beautiful. Shiloh and Eli, because the land is very beautiful. Like in the last parsha of the year, it says that the land of Joseph is
Joseph
God gave
in English.
Joseph the best of the land. The best of Hashem's God's land that He gave to Joseph, and it was filled with greenery and beautiful springs. But the contours of the hills are so beautiful. Malay Levanah and all these hills, there's such a beauty to them. And
this is all in the Shomron, in Samaria.
Samaria.
What about Judea? And for anybody who doesn't know the map of Israel, you've got Jerusalem in the center, and above Jerusalem is the Samarian region, and below Jerusalem in the south is the Judean region, and they both kind of converge on Jerusalem itself. But what about Judea?
I do have an affection for Gush Etzion, though, personally. Like, I'm just talking about from just a natural viewpoint of looking at the land, but I like Gush Etzion.
Gush Etzion, again, for anyone who doesn't know, is in Judea. It's south of Jerusalem, yes.
South of Jerusalem. Ephrat, Bethlehem is in the area. and in some very beautiful modern communities. And it's been a place where a lot of English-speaking people have settled, like in Efrat and Neve Daniel and Elazar and Ellen Shvut and so forth. And
there's a lot of Americans and English speakers in these areas as well, by the way. So anyone who's looking to make Aliyah may want to consider these communities where you can live in a suburban area, which is only, within half an hour, usually plus or minus, to Jerusalem, to the bigger city. And so with that, we only have another minute left. Ezra, what would you like to leave us with in this last minute?
We need lots of players in the game. Judea and Samaria is in a crisis right now, and the communities need a lot of help, a lot of support, and maybe you can be a player in the game, whether you're supporting communities or supporting institutions, even like the One Israel Fund that does a lot of great things. And if you're American, hey, you get a tax receipt, but tax receipt from Hashem is better, obviously. And share the video, because by sharing the video, you're connecting people to the land. God said to Abraham, look to the land, to the north, to the south, to the east, to the west. All this land I give to you. Then he said, walk through the land, because he wanted Abraham to be connected to the land by seeing it with his eyes and by walking through the land. But when people watch this video, they'll be able to see the land and actually travel through it. By doing that, you'll be connected to the land. And how do you help your Jewish people? Connect them to the land. You can read about it in the Torah, in the Bible, all you want. But unless you see it with your eyes, it's a whole different gambit. You become a different person.
Right.
And
so Ezra, I just want to read out
a video if you can.
Yes, absolutely. Again, you can view that video as soon as you log on to IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. It's right there at the top of the page. Watch the video, share it with your friends before, God forbid, it's taken down, and share it, learn it, and be inspired by it, and be knowledgeable when you talk about Israel. Thank you, everybody, for being with us. Ezra Ridgely, thank you as well. God bless you.
So much, Tamar.
Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. Just click the orange button at the top of the IsraelNewsTalkRadio.home page, log in as yourself or an anonymous guest, and join in on the fun. You'll meet other listeners from all over the world who listen to Israel News Talk Radio, and you can make new friends. Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. It's the closest you can get to being in the studio with us.
We love listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Where can you get the inside news on Israel? At Israel News Talk Radio, we're dedicated to sharing Israel's inside story with the world by providing our listeners with news on Israeli politics, current affairs, and Israeli Jewish culture. The Israel News Talk Radio homepage also provides you, the listener, with useful information at your fingertips, with scrolling news headlines, weather, currency exchange, Shabbat candlelighting times, and so much more. Our radio programming is always accessible and on demand. We operate absolutely free of charge for everyone, everywhere. If you love what we do, partner with us now by becoming an Israel News Talk Radio supporter. With your support, you'll be inscribed on our Israel News Talk Radio Wall of Fame. There's nothing like us in the world. Be part of something great. Israel News Talk Radio. Straight talk from Israel.
If you love Israel News Talk Radio, then you'll love our Facebook page. We keep you up to date on what's happening in Israel, plus little surprise treasures that we don't share on the radio. Go now to follow us on Facebook. Just look for the Israel News Talk Radio Facebook page, and don't forget to subscribe and follow us by clicking on the like button. We post great stuff there that you'll want to share. Israel News Talk Radio on Facebook and Israel News Radio on Twitter.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.